So, like all the other videos we made talking about players that are free agents and connecting them to NHL teams, we have to be very, very careful when we talk about this topic in this sort of way. All it takes is a contract signing within the next few hours to really throw off the momentum I'm trying to build while creating this video over here. But long story short, we're talking about a guy that currently, as of recording this audio, it is Saturday, July 30th, 10:17 a.m. PST. I'm going to actually head out to the anime convention over here in Vancouver. Thank you very much for asking. And we have ourselves a conversation to go about when it comes to Nazem Kadri, formerly of the Colorado Avalanche, currently a free agent, and potentially a Detroit Red Wings signee. Now, the reason we're talking about the Red Wings and Kadri is because of a quote from Elliotte Friedman linking the two parties. Here's the quote from Twitter. It's Ryan Hanna from the Winged Wheeled Pod who posted this, from Friedman on Kadri. He wouldn't be surprised if Detroit is kicking around there. Now, it's a small tweet, very simple, very short sentence over there, but this sentence packs a lot of punch, and it brings a lot of conversation that we can have to the forefront when it comes to the Red Wings and this player. Now, I know what you're thinking. A lot of Red Wings fans, upon seeing this news, Kadri and the Wings might be a possibility. The immediate reaction was, hey, why the hell are we going to do that? No way, buddy. Nazem Kadri is older. He is going to expect a long-term extension. He's going to expect a high AAV. There's no way the Red Wings would go out there and shell out significant money for this type of guy, especially when you have Andrew Kopp and Dylan Larkin projecting as your top two centers. It just does not fit. And that's a very fair assumption to go out there and make when it comes to the Kadri and Red Wings conversation, but I don't think it's the conversation that we should be having anymore. The reason for that is Nazem Kadri is a guy that if you go over his profile, we all kind of know just the status quo of this guy. 31 years old, 6 feet, 192, and as we said, that status quo that we were talking about, this player was coming off a season where he had 87 points in 71 games played and 15 points in 16 games in the playoffs. With all things considered, you could go out there and very fairly assume that Kadri would expect a huge contract on the open market. Maybe 7 years long, maybe something in that $8.5, $9, $10 million AAV range, because, I mean, do the math right here. 87 divvy 71, multiplied out by 82. Kadri was on pace for 100 points on the season, and that's a lot of points right there. This is a player that could have gotten a lot of money in the eyes of many people heading into the free agent market, but, as we noted, he just hasn't. This audio is being recorded in a segment of time where Kadri still has not put the pen to the dotted line and he's still unsigned. We saw a contract signing for me yesterday, for you 2 days ago because this video is being recorded a day in advance, with a similar situation in John Klingberg. This was a guy that went out there and was reportedly asking for a lot of money and a lot of term with the Dallas Stars on an extension, but after that team failed to give him that money and all the other teams failed to give him any contract that he actually felt okay with as well, he fired his agent, went with a new agency, and he went the Taylor Hall route. He signed a 1-year, $7 million AAV contract with the Ducks. He'll likely get traded at the trade deadline for some more assets for that team, and he'll sign another contract next year, hoping to cash in from whatever success he would have in 2022-2023 with the Anaheim Ducks system themselves. This Nazem Kadri situation, I'm starting to feel, is entering that territory of John Klingberg, Taylor Hall, where Kadri is no longer going to be able to get a 7-year, $9 million AAV deal because there's just not really going to be a market for that type of contract anymore. Instead, we might rather see Kadri go out there and sign a 1-year deal, let's say worth $8.5 or $9 million. He goes out there to whichever team ends up hiring him. He scores 85, 90, 95, 100 points, and then he goes over to a playoff team. He gets sent over at the trade deadline for draft picks, etc. He goes far in the playoffs, he maybe wins another Stanley Cup, and then as a free agent again next year, he signs another contract that is a lot more up to speed as to what he wanted this year. Could Detroit be that sort of Anaheim Ducks, John Klingberg fit of a team where Yzerman gives Kadri a short, very, very short-term deal in order to just boost up his stock? boost up the value of the team a little bit in the short term, and maybe get some assets by trading him away at the deadline. You notice this about a lot of the guys that the Red Wings acquired this previous offseason, but Ben Sherratt, Andrew Kopp, these guys stuck on for a while. 4 years long. Dominic Kubalik and David Perron are in here too. They're not on the longest term deals, but they're still not here for a short amount of time either. And Yzerman has been really strategic when it comes to building this team the way that he has, because he did very much improve the quality of the roster day one of training camp here with all the acquisitions that he made. Could Nazem Kadri be the one final piece that really pushes this Red Wings team over the hump in the short term, maybe forces them to making a wild card if they ended up keeping the guy, or they trade him away at the trade deadline, get a whole bunch of picks, get a whole bunch of assets, and he's ultimately a rental for another playoff team that goes far in the dance. It's a really interesting conversation, and it's one that actually does make sense in my mind in more ways than one, which is why I'm talking about it here on the channel, and I wanted to turn the discussion over to you. Now, just to cover all of my bases here, let's go over onto the Detroit Red Wings subreddit and look at the thread talking about this exact tweet that we saw earlier in the video. The top comment here comes from user CD23TOL. Have to assume that Kadri overshot his expectations on a contract. The rumors were he was asking for $9-10 million per on a long-term deal. If he wants to go the Klingberg route and take a one-year deal with some minimal trade protection, then maybe he stays or extends if we're in a playoff spot, or we eat half of his salary for a first plus, and that works too. It would make Pia Sutar expendable, or it would push Joe Veleno to Grand Rapids. A top 9 of Bertuzzi, Larkin, Raymond, Vrana, Kadri, Perron, Zadina, Kopp, and Kubalik. Yeesh, talk about night and day to last year. Kramerica replies, I'd feel bad for Andrew Kopp if we did him like that, because that's doing him dirty. He's definitely better than third-line duties with average wingers around him. The following replies then go over the idea that, hey, he was already a good third-line player in Winnipeg, but you don't give a third-line center 5 by 5.65, so there are a lot of arguments either way that go about supporting or neglecting the idea of adding on another center of Kadri's level to the team. And Andrew Kopp seems to be at the forefront of those types of discussions because he was shelled out a pretty beefy deal. But I mean, of course he was. He was a point-per-game player for the Rangers in the postseason and in the regular season after being acquired by that team. But either way, Kadri in Detroit, do you like this sort of line where you have him playing with a guy like Vrana as well as David Perron? Honestly, that is a beautiful line, and I think it actually could do some very significant damage, assuming, of course, Vrana stays healthy, Perron plays as well as he's continued to play throughout the latter parts of his career, and then, of course, Nazem Kadri was a 100-point caliber player in this most recent NHL season, so there's a lot of excitement, I feel, if you were to band this group of players together, and heck, even Andrew Kopp playing with Kubalik on the third line isn't that bad in my opinion. It's just diversification of minutes and telling a guy that's signed on for a pretty beefy deal, hey, you're going to be a third line center. It's obviously not ideal when it comes to the way you manage your assets, but at the end of the day, if you add Nazem Kadri to a team that already has Kopp and Larkin, I think that's pretty good. Especially in the short term, especially when you're not making a long-term commitment here, because Kadri is 31, like, shelling out 7-8 years for a guy like this who is going to be 38, 39 when the contract expires, like, that is not anything that I'd feel comfortable doing, but at the end of the day, if it's short term, if it's John Klingberg, Taylor Hall-esque, I'm a lot more on board with that idea, but of course, I want to hear what you think in the comment section below as well. What do you think about the idea of the Red Wings going out there and pursuing Nazem Kadri? In the words of Elliotte Friedman, he says that he would not be surprised if Detroit was kicking around there. Is that something you would like to explore? Why or why not? If you do add Kadri onto your squad, what does the lineup look like, and where do you think these minutes should go to? Who do you think Kadri should play with? Who do you think Andrew Kopp should play with? What do you think the diversification between these guys in the power play, special teams, etc. should be? Talk to me in the comments of your thoughts about Nazem Kadri and the Detroit Red Wings. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.